off by saying how excited we are about Glam Fest coming up. How does it feel for you guys to be part of Glam Fest 2023?
It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be, except for the super long flight, it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to, just hanging out in Australia, seeing all these beautiful cities is going to be a big experience for us. So, and playing music and meeting all the fans, of course.
Yeah. Now, as someone who has to do those mega long flights quite a lot for work when I have to fly around the world, how do you cope with those long flights? Because everyone I chat to seems to have a different way of coping with it.
I think the answer is drinks and beer. I think that's how we cope with it.
Well, now I've got to ask, are you looking forward to some Aussie beer? Because we're famous for making some of the best beers in the world. Are you excited about tasting some of the Aussie beers?
Absolutely. We were in Melbourne in 2015, and I really enjoyed all the pubs and all the small breweries and beers, and I think that's probably going to be one of the best things about this trip.
And we've got so many more now as well. There are so many microbreweries that have popped up in Melbourne over the last couple of years where you can go in and even do free beer tasting. Is that something that you might be looking forward to doing when you're in Melbourne?
Absolutely. It's going to be a top priority.
Now, like you said, you got to come in 2015 and meet a lot of your Australian fans. How did you find the Australian fans at shows, and what were your highlights from that tour?
Well, I think Australia it looks kind of like Europe in a way. It's very European, but still it's very different, and people are so extremely friendly, and the atmosphere is just amazing. I really enjoyed our time in Melbourne. We were there for a week, and it's going to be great.
Were you surprised back then to learn how many Australian fans you had, or from the online presence did you kind of know at that time?
We had no clue at all back then, but I don't know how many fans we have there right now anyway, but it seems to be enough for them to make us come over there and play live, so it's going to be great.
Now, man, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your career, because you guys have been so solid now for over 20 years. Tell us a little bit about what that was like in the early days for the band starting out, because it's rare these days that bands make it to that 20-year mark. So what was that like for you when you first started out? Did you expect that you would still be doing this 20 years later?
Well, back then we had no clue in what we were doing, but we were very young, and it was in the beginning of the 2000s, and melodic rock or melodic hard rock was so completely out of fashion. Everyone thought we were complete idiots playing this kind of music, and that kept on going for quite some years. It was impossible almost to get gigs because no one took this music kind of serious, because it was not cool at all. But in 2010, 12, something happened, and it was people accepted this music, and it's just so we were kind of the new wave of this melodic hard rock bands coming out of Sweden, and so things are extremely more. Everyone takes this music seriously. We have a lot of shows, we tour, and but back then it was a complete disaster. But we kept on going, and what else could we do? We loved this music, and we did what we did it with our hearts, and in the long run it has really paid off.
When did you first fall in love with that genre of music? Was there a time in your life when you heard it and went, that's what I want to do? And what were the bands that inspired you back then?
I have a 3-year older brother, and they constantly listen to hard rock. So I've been hearing hard rock music as long as I can remember, and everything from Wasp to Mötley Crüe. Wasp and Mötley Crüe was my favorite when I was a kid, and then I had different phases. I've been having my thrash metal and death metal phase as well. for some years was the only thing I listened to, and then I kind of, when I started writing my own songs, the songs I wrote were very melodic, hard rock songs. So I guess that was my personal style. But I tried to incorporate everything from folk music to black metal into our music, and make it our own sound somehow.
I was going to ask that. The sound of the band over the years, it sounds like there are so many different genres in there. Is that something that you've always been aware of, or is that something that you set out to do with the band in the first place?
We haven't had a big plan, but I think we started after a while. In the beginning, everything was, because no one liked this kind of music. We tried to please everyone, but we ended up pleasing no one with the music. So after a while, we just gave it up and let's do music just the way we want it to sound like, and we don't care if people listen to it or not. And I think that was a big change for us when we did our own style, kind of, or didn't care. Then people started to pay attention and thought it was really good. So I think since then we've always tried to find our own sound, our own way of doing this kind of music, because there are so many fantastic bands throughout the history that's been doing this kind of music. But we try to, and you have one foot in the past and one foot in the here and now, and try to do your own thing. And I think that's always a struggle to try to find our own sound, because there's no point in sounding like Whitesnake or Mötley Crüe, because they already exist and you can't do it better than they do it. So I think we always try to find our own way, our own sound, and also make changes for every record, and so we don't get stuck in the same, exact same style all the time.
Yeah. In those early days, like you said, the style of music was out of fashion. How difficult was it for you to get your music noticed, especially with playing live gigs and getting tracks on radio? Was that difficult, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it was almost impossible in the beginning. First of all, we weren't that good at all. The record sounded not that good, and the songs were not that good, and we were kind of boring live. But we progressed and got better and better throughout the years, and also, as I said earlier, people started to accept this show. I think it was too close to the 80s or something like that, so people were kind of afraid of it. They thought it sounded kind of dated, or it was kind of cheesy to play that kind of music. But in the 2010, around that, everything changed, and people started to accept this. And nowadays you can play any kind of music, because it's just music. Hard rock, it doesn't matter if you play 80s music or 70s or modern style. People accept everything, and they can go to festivals, and people can enjoy Dio and Green Day at the same time.
The other thing I've noticed as well is around 2010, that was the time when, especially with a lot of the 80s bands, the people going to the shows changed. I mean, in the early days, here in Australia especially, people that would go and see Whitesnake or Mötley Crüe live were people that grew up listening to their music. So people of my dad's generation and my generation. But around that time, it also seemed like the younger generation started to take an interest in the music of the past. Was that something that you found as well? And do you think that Eclipse got more fans because of that as well, because people were seeking out that music?
Absolutely. There is a change in generations. So the funny thing, when you go to classic rock concerts, or if you go to Eclipse concert, there are people from 18 to 65 at the gigs.
Yep.
And they can all enjoy the music together somehow. And that's also a big change throughout the years for Eclipse. In the beginning, they were like the middle-aged men who grew up in the 80s, watching all those bands from the 70s and 80s, and they enjoyed our music because we had kind of that vibe. But as throughout the years, it has changed, and there's a completely new generation coming to the shows. So actually, if you check the stats at Spotify, like 65-70% of our listeners are 34 years or younger. Which is remarkable.
Yeah. And coming across to Australia to play a festival like Glam Fest, do you see that as an opportunity to win over more fans as well? Because there might be people coming along to those shows that aren't fans of your music, and it might be the first time they ever get to see you play live. Is that something that you become aware of when you play at a festival?
Absolutely. I think that's the big advantage of playing festivals, because you don't have your direct, the immediate fans. You have people who just, let's check them out and see if they're any good. And because myself, I've been finding a lot of bands at festival when I was younger, and I went to a lot of festivals, and like, wow, that's a great band, and you became a fan. So I think it's still happening, and I think that's a great thing about playing festivals.
So tell us a little bit about what you've got in store for your Australian fans at Glam Fest this year. You guys have got so many amazing tracks now from over 20 years of writing music. How do you work out what you're going to write, what you're going to perform at a festival like Glam Fest?
Well, there are going to be 4 nights. I think the set list is going to change throughout those nights, but we always play a lot of new songs from the latest record. We've always been doing that because we don't want to be we're afraid of being like a best of band. So we play a lot of new songs, and then we add the favorites and maybe some odd tracks as well for fans. So I don't know. We're gonna play 45 minutes, so it's not gonna be a lot of songs. So it's gonna be a lot of mixing throughout the night as well. So.
Awesome. And how do you feel about the caliber of the bands that are playing at this festival? It's an absolutely amazing lineup. Are you looking forward to being able to sit down and chat to these guys? Because it's bands from right around the world.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I think it's going to be a really, everyone is going to staying quite tight together, all from dressing rooms to flights to transportation. So I think after this a small tour package, I think we're all going to know each other pretty well.
Definitely. Now, I know we are running out of time very, very quickly for the interview, so I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask is, what have you guys got planned for 2023? It's been a little while now since the last album. Are you guys starting to work on some new material?
We have started to work on new material. There will hopefully be a new record this year. But the old Wired, our latest record, came out in October 21, so it's just like a 1.5 year old.
Yep.
So it's quite recently. It doesn't feel like a long time since we released it, but we are already in the process of starting to record a new record.
Yeah, and Wired came out as well during the pandemic. Was that kind of a weird experience for you, having an album coming out during the pandemic and not being able to get out on the road straight away and touring with it?
Yeah, it was kind of strange, but we thought by the end of at October 21, we thought this gotta be over by then, which it wasn't. But it was like a small time frame when some festivals and some gigs actually could happen. So we did some gigs. We had release gigs and we did some festivals, and so at least we had to play. We did some shows, but in the beginning of 2022, it's probably been the most hectic year for Eclipse ever. So we've been playing a lot of shows, a lot of festivals, all over. So it's been a really, really good year.
Yeah.
For us.
What did that feel? What did that feel like getting back out on the road after that time off? Did that feel like a fresh start almost because you had been forced to take that time off?
It was kind of scary because it was almost 2 years. So like you after 2 years of not doing shows, you feel like you're doing it for the first time again. So it was really, really nervous. But as soon as we ran out on stage, it was like, I know this. I've been doing this a lot of times. So it's like we were back but it just before that, the first gig was a big festival in Belgium. So it was kind of scary, but you kind of doubted that you could do it again. But
awesome.
managed somehow, and yeah.
Well, mate, we are going to play Twilight and Bite the Bullet back to back on our show right now. But before we do, what would you like to say to all of the Australian fans out there who are coming along to Glam Fest, or those that are thinking about grabbing tickets but haven't done so yet?
Well, for those who already bought tickets, I think thank you so much, and for those who without people who buy tickets and go to concerts or listen to the music or buy albums, bands are nothing. So without them, it doesn't matter if it's AC/DC or the local cover band. We all depend on people coming to the shows, and without them, we're nothing. So if you haven't bought your ticket yet, and do it and support the music scene. And otherwise, there will be no more festivals or concerts. So without people like you, we don't exist.